Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's review we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Transformers and Marvel collaboration Ultimate X-Spanse. Now before we begin this review I would really appreciate it if you could all smash the like button, hit the subscribe button and of course click that notification bell. When X-Spanse was first officially unveiled by Hasbro I was actually really excited, as in the past I have definitely had a love and hate relationship with these crossovers, especially with some of the older Transformers crossovers that they used to do. Ectotron I certainly thought was a step in the right direction, however Maverick was definitely a major letdown. So when this figure was unveiled, despite it looking absolutely incredible, I was still a little hesitant on how it would actually turn out in hand, and whilst not as good as Gigawatt, it once again certainly is one of the better collaborative pieces that we have gotten, and for those of you who are of course Transformers and X-Men fans, you are going to have an absolute field day here with this particular release. So starting off firstly, we shall begin by taking a look at the accessories. We do of course get included two minifigures. These are non-articulated and are in fact slug figures, but you can see that as far as the detail and the paint is concerned, Wolverine has turned out really well. Unfortunately, the face is a little off, although seeing as how small these figures are, I am able to give that an easy pass, and even the back of the figure too has been painted, so I can't really complain too much, and the sculpt work, especially for the body, has come out incredibly well. As we take a look here at Sabretooth, he is definitely the better out of the two. The sculpt is just so awesome, and you can actually pick out some minute details there, such as the eyes, nose, and mouth, and I also love the fur texturing detailing that we have got around where the neck and shoulders is, and the paint apps too have come out exceptionally well. We do also get three blast effects. Now two are mainly intended for X-Spanse himself, whereas this third one is a blast effect which is dedicated for these minifigs. I believe this is supposed to give you the impression that the characters are indeed dashing. Perhaps this is a nod to the Marvel comics. I personally am not 100% certain, but it definitely does give me that impression. So overall, as far as the minifigures are concerned, they are a nice inclusion, although are by no stretch of the imagination the highlight out of the set. And something which is also worth mentioning is that they are not designed to actually scale with the X-Jet itself. They are more intended to scale with him in his robot mode, as if they were intended to scale with the Jet, they would have to be significantly smaller. As far as weapon storage is concerned here for the two robot mode blasters, you are going to want to turn to the underside, and we do in fact get two 5mm ports here where the shoulder region is, and you're just going to want to take both of these and snap them into place on both sides, and for the most part they do conceal rather nicely, of course from a side perspective. Considering they have been cast out of a very vibrant transparent pink, they definitely do stand out from the rest of the sculpt, but still it is a nice form of weapon storage. And taking a look here at X-Spanse here in his X-Jet alternate mode, of course for those of you who are unaware, I do believe this is a Lockheed Blackbird, and for those of you who are a fan of the live action movie figures, upon this figure's announcement many of you, myself included, actually believed that this figure here was a heavy retool of the Studio Series Jetfire, and I can confirm that despite him sharing minimal parts with that figure, for the most part the conversion is completely different. This figure here really does bear no resemblance where the transformation or even the robot mode is concerned to that original Studio Series Jetfire figure, so they definitely have done a very good job. Now as you can see, the main colour palette is of course blue in order to evoke how the X-Jet looked in the comics, and I think they've done a really nice job, especially with the actual shade of blue that they have used. You can clearly see all of the sculpted and detailing that we have got going on here for the top. As far as I'm aware, this section here as well as this entire back plate is a carryover from Jetfire. Right now I do have him broke up into a million pieces with the DNA design upgrade kit actually attached, so I will be unable to do a direct alternate mode comparison, but I'm pretty certain that it is merely just these pieces which are exactly the same. The rest of the figure is a complete brand new sculpt, so we do get some nice purple transparent plastic here for the cockpit of the X-Jet. Of course, really awesome, very vibrant yellow thrusters with the black outer line around the edges, and then as we take a look here from a bird's eye perspective, we do have the X-Men logo here on the sides of these fins. Something which is worth noting is that I have actually angled these, as if you try to have them straight they will more than likely just completely collapse, and this is a major critique here on this figure, as these pieces are pretty much brand new. Honestly, this entire region does appear to be a complete new sculpt. I'm really unsure as to why the mold is so loose already. I have actually found that they do stay in a lot more secure if you do actually inverse them, although I won't do that as it could potentially jeopardize the outcome of the conversion. But rest assured, if you do decide to flip them and yours are loose in this configuration, they are definitely tighter if you do decide to inverse them. As we take a look here towards the back, you can see some nice detail for the thrusters, and as far as the side profile is concerned, as to be expected with such a sleek jet such as the Lockheed Martin Blackbird, there is unfortunately some robot mode kibble visible, although I definitely think they've done a fantastic job in actually concealing it. And even as we turn here to the underside, we do expose some mechanical detail detailing that quite honestly you don't actually even see in robot mode. So that too is a nice attention to detail. We can collapse the landing gear here so we can create, for once again, a slightly slimmer profile. So just compress that there, just like so. And overall, I definitely think that this here has turned out really well. Here for a Transformers collaborative comparison, we have X-Spanse compared next to, of course, the god of the collaboration figures, that being Gigawatt. And you can see that as far as scale is concerned, Gigawatt was more in the deluxe scale, whereas X-Spanse is definitely in the leader class scale. And just judging by memory, he is probably the exact same size as that of the Studio Series leader Jetfire, at least here in his jet mode. So without further ado, let's get down to transformation. So transformation here for this figure, I'll be honest and say, is a lot more complex than I initially suspected. I would even go as far as saying that it is more complex than the Revenge of the Fallen Studio Series Jetfire himself. So to begin with, you're going to want to flip here to the underside and of course compress the landing gear here on both sides. I would then recommend coming here to the thrusters and just attaching them. They are held in via these clips and some tabs here on the underside, so just disengage those. We can then take the foot here, hinge this section out, of course repeat the same process here on the opposite side and just hinge this section. We can then take the two ratchet joints and just hinge these out of the way to allow for some clearance for the upper torso. You'll then want to flip here to this side, and I would recommend just taking this and disengaging this here from the back. We can then take the two wings, split them and hinge them all the way up. Much like Jetfire, you'll then want to take this section, hinge this back and tab this into place. And once again, as mentioned, it really is only this entire assembly and then these two panels which do appear to be a direct carryover from that Studio Series figure. We'll then flip our attention here to this side, and this is where things can become rather convoluted. So you'll want to take these pieces, just hinge them there out to the side and take this section and of course split that. We can then come here to the top and you're going to want to take the thruster, disengage this, and then we'll want to take both of these panels here, extend those, and just repeat the same process here on the opposite side. Rotate them around so that they are now facing in the opposite direction. You'll then want to straighten out this ratchet joint and then just compress them just like so. Once that's complete, we can then take this region, and something which is worth noting is that you are going to want to align this tab which is created from this fin here into this slot. Now it can be rather finicky to do, especially as you don't have a great deal of eye vision actually trying to get that in there, although once it is locked into place you can see that the fin will be unable to actually swing side to side. Once that's locked in, we do have a tab that will peg here into this slot, so just snap that in there. Of course, come here to this side and repeat the same process, and you saw here that one of the fins did unfortunately pop off. That does appear to be a common issue across the board for all X-Spanse figures, and as this figure for the most part is a brand new sculpt, it is unfortunate to actually see the joints being so loose so soon in production. We'll then want to take the ratchet joint and just extend this here forwards, bring this down and of course rotate here at the top, just orientate the leg around like so. We can then turn our attention to this side and repeat the same process, so fold out this panel, come here to the top, pop the thruster up. We can then take this, pull that out to the side, extend these joints and rotate those around, whilst at the same time ratcheting the knee joint. Something which is also worth mentioning is that unlike Jetfire, X-Spanse does actually have friction ratchet joints, which means there are no springs in the ratchets themselves, and I personally hate these ratchet joints. To me, they've always come across as cheap, as the actual indents themselves always tend to actually sand down over time, creating for what is essentially just a very loose hinge joint. But for now, they do feel rather stiff, so of course bring this entire section down. You'll then want to take this fin, hinge this so that we do now create that tab that will peg into this slot, arch this up and snap that there into place. Take the side panels, clip that there, and then clip this section in as well. Straighten out the toes, bring this piece back in and just snap this here into place like so, and just have that resting there at the back. We can then turn our attention here to this entire assembly. Now for this, you're going to want to take the top section and disengage it from these two tabs. Once that is unlocked, split these two halves on either side and then just flop this entire region here like so. I would then recommend turning our attention here to the torso. You're going to want to take this section, and something which is worth noting is that they have merely added this almost thruster detailing here to the base solely for the X-Jet Alt mode. This is something that you do not see when we do get him into robot mode, as this panel does come over the top and actually snap there into place. We can then bring the arms down like so. We can then take this entire section, and you'll want to ensure that the head is pulled backwards to allow for some clearance, and you're going to want to make sure that this almost tab section does sit underneath the head joint. So just clip that there into place, and then here with the head you can see that the neck too is on a hinge joint. You'll want to arch that back until it does actually click there into place, which will stop the neck from drooping down. We can then spin our attention here to the back, and for this section you're going to want to essentially overlap these panels here and flip them around. We can then take this, bring this over, snap this into place, and then ensure that this does stay down as well, as this here has to go in first. And then of course we do have a tab here that will peg into this slot, so just clip that there into place, raise the wings up on either sides, turn your attention here to the arms, rotate this panel out, snap that there into place, and just according all of this down, and repeat the same process here on the opposite side. And then just take the landing gear, fold these here to the back, and with all of that complete, here we have X-Spanse fully transformed up into his rather awesome looking robot mode. And so, as you could tell from that transformation sequence, it is a major departure from what we got with Studio Series Jetfire. So to back up my earlier point, I am very confident in saying that this figure is at least 98% brand new, with it merely just being the back section and the two wings that we have attached onto the shoulders, which are a carryover. And something which I have also seen many people ask is whether or not he still does have the combining joints, and no, this figure here does not have the capability of actually being able to pull apart, much like we got with Jetfire. But actually taking a look at the main robot mode itself, for a collaborative piece, I once again believe that they've done a very, very good job. Now, of course, the figure is not 100% perfect, and I shall get into all of the flaws that I do have, at least here on my copy, but the creativity that has gone into this figure is certainly evident with the amount of design cues taken directly from some of the other X-Men. For example, if we bring him in to have a better look here at the details, you can see that the head sculpt is no doubt a direct carryover from Cyclops. I absolutely love the look here of the visor. You can see, of course, this has been completely painted in a really vibrant yellow, much like you would expect from a figure which is supposed to be based on a comic book, and the silver metallic paint used there for the faceplate really does help to make the sculpt pop. Not to mention that the colour of blue plastic that they have cast the figure in too is incredibly vibrant, and overall I just think the colour scheme works exceptionally well. I also do like the attention to detail where you can actually take the visor here of what would be Cyclops and raise this section up to reveal the true eyes of X-Spanse himself. Now, if I were to be nitpicky, I do have to be honest and say that the eyes do look slightly too wide, although I believe this is probably to give you the impression that he has got laser beams shooting out of them, so it would stand to reason that he would have his eyes incredibly wide. I would have loved to have seen a blast effect to actually plug onto this, as of course that is Cyclops' special ability, and seeing as they have got the visor, it would have made sense for them to include a blast effect. But regardless, you can see that as far as the torso is concerned, the sculpt and the difference between the paintwork definitely does look fantastic, and all of the colours do complement each other exceptionally well. We've got what appears to be these braces over the top with, of course, the X-Men logo here in the centre, with the very vibrant red and, of course, the black paint used here in order to highlight the X insignia. We have got some subtle yellow highlights here on the arms, as well as some nice mechanical detailing, and I do actually really like the entire design here for the arms. You can see the shoulders there have got some nice yellow highlights. As we turn our attention to the forearms, we've of course got a nice gunmetal, and the wrists do in fact have what appear to be blasters, as these are what you will use in order to peg on some of those blast effects, which I'll demonstrate later on in the review. As we take a look here towards the belt, this looks very familiar, and as if it has just been plucked straight out of the old cartoon series, or of course the comic book series. We've got all of the pouches here, as well as the X logo there in the center. And then as we take a look here towards the legs, you can see the difference between the blue, yellow and grey. We've got the thrusters here for the knee pads, which I think works perfectly. And then as we take a look here towards the front of the legs, I believe these too have turned out really well, although when we take a look at them here from the side perspective, I am not a fan of how the wings do just flop around here. There really isn't a way to have these pegged in, and I wish perhaps they could have sat along this side, much like Starscream's design, instead of jutting out here to the back. I do like the detailing actually underneath all of this panel, so it does give you that almost multi-layered effect that you would want to see from a Transformer, and you can once again see some nice details such as the X logos here at the bottom, as well as here for the knee joints. And I I think this entire back region too has cleaned up quite well, and it is nice to see them apply a gunmetal here on the back instead of just leaving it a complete blue piece. As far as articulation is concerned, besides the articulation that we got here with the visor, his head is on a hinge joint, so we are able to hinge this left to right as well as hinge it up and down, although it is slightly restricted due to the nature of the design, and of course these ear-like sections that are attached to the visor, which I have got to say also do have the X logo on the sides. We do get a full rotation here at the arm, although once again you will have to move certain parts of the robot mode out of the way in order to maximize that range of motion. We do get a hinge joint here at the shoulder, and if you utilize the transformation joint, you do once again get a much greater range of motion. We do get a full rotation here at the bicep, as well as a 90-degree bend there at the elbow, full rotation here at the wrist, and something which is really interesting and an area which I actually thought was broke upon transforming him for the first time is he does have an ab crunch as well as a side-to-side swivel. So just to demonstrate this, you can see that it is able to crunch forwards as well as rock side to side. We of course do also get a waist joint, and if I just actually show you that joint, if you take this section and lift this up, you can see that we do reveal some fantastic detail, and once this panel is lifted up, you can see how you can maximize the range of motion here for that ab crunch and of course hinge it side to side. So this was definitely an intentional joint and is something that is not designed to aid transformation. So it is a nice inclusion, although I wish it was perhaps executed a little better, as due to it being loose, he really is unable to hold a pose crunching forwards. We do get ratchet joints here at the legs, which can kick roughly to 90, and they can also do the same backwards. We do get ratchet joints here outwards, which can of course do the split. Rotation here at the thigh, as well as a double joint here at the knee, although due to the nature of the design, you are slightly restricted due to, of course, all of the back kibble. And then as we take a look here towards the foot, the thruster itself is on a ball joint, so you are able to manipulate this on its own. And then we, of course, do also get a hinge joint here for the ankle rocker joint. So overall, as far as the articulation is concerned, for a figure which is essentially a leader class, it has definitely turned out incredibly well. And I, for one, was certainly surprised to see how agile this character was, considering that he does share a very similar alt mode to Studio Series Jetfire, which is a lot more of a clunkier design than compared to what we got here with X-Spanse. And so, bringing in some of the additional accessories, we shall take this blast effect and simply just port it here into the hand. These are compatible with any of the Siege blast effects as well, so any of your War for Cybertron effects will work here with this figure, although he doesn't have any of those tiny ports for you to actually place them throughout the figure. I really also like the design here of this particular one. Of course, this is supposed to represent the design of Wolverine's claws, and it is just a really nice touch that Hasbro didn't have to do, but I'm super glad that they did. And of course, the detail on this piece, for being made out of a transparent material, I believe has turned out really well. We also do get a more generic blast beam effect, and now this is something that I wish could have been adapted to actually peg onto the eyes when you do lift the visor up, but regardless, you are supposed to just take this here and peg this onto the side, and I have actually found myself getting this figure into many dynamic poses, of which I'm pretty certain you shall all see throughout this review on some of the turnarounds. For a very quick comparison with some of the minifigures that he comes with, unfortunately they don't really have a place to actually peg onto the figure. The instructions do merely state that you just place them here on top of the wings, although balancing them definitely is more difficult than the actual transformation itself. So I would definitely recommend perhaps setting them off to the side in order to avoid losing them, or perhaps having them fall off the figure and being forgotten somewhere. So definitely really nice looking accessories, but I would have loved to have seen this one here adapted into an eyepiece. And here, for a Transformers size comparison, we have X-Spanse compared next to, of course, the god of all crossovers, Gigawatt, and then of course the Earthrise legendary Optimus Prime. And as mentioned earlier on in the review, he is certainly more of the leader class scale, and I would even go as far as saying the Studio Series leader class scale, as he is bigger than pretty much any of the War for Cybertron leaders that we have gotten, and is more in keeping with perhaps the Studio Series Age of Extinction Grimlock, although I don't believe there is as much plastic being used here on this figure than compared to, of course, Grimlock. But as far as height is concerned, he is definitely really up there, and you can just see from this comparison alone how much presence he has due to the amazing colour scheme and the really unique and very compelling looking design. And so, some final thoughts. Overall, I believe Hasbro did a really good job here with X-Spanse. He is leaps and bounds better when compared to the previous crossover, of which was Maverick, and is definitely more along the lines of what we've seen from Ectotron and of course Gigawatt. As far as a ranking is concerned, I would say that X-Spanse is probably my second favourite one that we have gotten so far, with of course Gigawatt being at the top spot. It definitely will take a very good crossover to actually knock him off that top spot. But getting back here to X-Spanse, as far as the robot mode is concerned, I think it looks really well done. The colour scheme is definitely a perfect choice for this particular character. I love the mix of course, the yellow paint and the really nice dark blue that they have cast the plastic in. I also do like some of the design traits taken from some of the X-Men, such as Wolverine's claws for the blast effect, of course Cyclops' visor, and the entire torso definitely does look like something you would see from the comics or even from the original cartoon series. I think that the transformation is definitely complex, and as mentioned, I believe is potentially more involved than that of the actual studio series Jetfire, of which many people, myself included, believe this figure here was based upon, although as you could see from the transformation and the end result here for robot mode, he is a completely different figure. I would say that he's pretty much 98, perhaps even 99% brand new, with it merely just being some of the back plates that are a carryover. I think they've done a really good job in replicating the look of the X-Jet. Of course, the paint in that mode is very subtle, but where it has been used is very effective, and of course, as it is a leader class figure, as it really should be, the figure definitely does have a lot of presence on the shelf, and it's really nice to get this very unique and original design to display alongside some of my other Transformers characters. So overall, if you do get the opportunity to pick up X-Spanse and these transforming collaborative pieces by Hasbro to appeal to you, then I would definitely highly recommend him. Although for those of you who have never been a fan of these crossovers, I don't believe that X-Spanse here will change your mind. I really hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, please do let me know down in the comment section below. Also be sure to let me know on what you think of the figure itself and whether or not you shall be adding him to your collection. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.